Yeah, hello everyone, and welcome to 2026. This year, it happened just like you thought it would. Everyone knew how 2026 was going to start, right? No, you didn't. You had no idea that it was going to be like this, but we're still here. And if you're here, you might as well have fun. Guys, we have a fantastic panel for us today. Of course, we have the unstoppable Sean Watkins and introducing Beverly Turner in the building from the other side of the world almost. She lives in Canada. She's a Canadian, but she's still a North American. Welcome, my friends.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. What did you do? What did you do for New Year's, Sean? Did you do anything special?
No, I really just sat on my couch. Actually, I sat in my backyard, watched some of the games, had a few cocktails, smoked a cigar, and then that was it.
I had taquitos. Bev, did you do anything? Did you get out of here? Did you party your brains out?
I slept my way into the new year. Got some Chinese food. It's exactly how I wanted it to go down, though. It couldn't have been better.
There is a pairing of something about Chinese food and the holidays that I can't understand, but it hits harder. Is that what you mean?
It really does. Yeah.
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 What's your go-to Chinese food order?
Actually, I get ramen.
That's not Chinese
That's my
food.
go-to if I'm ordering it. I know it's not Chinese food, but I do order takeout. That's usually what I get.
Yeah, I go with the obviously fried rice, and I'm gonna go with orange chicken because you can't lose with orange chicken.
It's true.
Sean, what is your Chinese food order?
Man, fried rice. Just keep it simple.
You keep it
Man,
simple.
and
You
you
keep
know,
it
Nothing else. Just a bucket of rice.
yeah, bucket of rice. It's all good. And I throw a little teriyaki chicken in there every now and then.
Well, guys, welcome for 2026. I appreciate you showing up and showing out. I really wanted to get into it to start this year because athletes' salaries are on the meteoric rise. Sean and I have talked about this. I'm sure, Bev, you're aware that athletes make a ton of money. I think Jaylen Brown signed a $300 million contract. Luka Doncic is up. He's going to be signing a $320 million contract. The quarterbacks in the NFL are signing $50, $60, $70 million contracts. And it made me think, what are we doing? Not that they're not worth it, but my question was, what is the worth of the modern day athlete? Because there's so much money being thrown around for their skills, and it just makes me wonder what they're being paid for. When we look in the past, we find the seminal names of greatness, your Jim Browns, your Muhammad Alis, people who left a lasting mark, Billie Jean King for women's sports, and they didn't make a lot of money. So I'm going to tee it off to you, Sean. When we're looking at these high amounts of money that are being shown around for athletes in today's society, the first question is, are we just kind of overlooking the past of what was built for them?
I wouldn't say that. I just value is placed on these athletes based off of what they can do and how they can make money for the organizations that they play for. So if you take a guy like Shedeur Sanders, 5th round quarterback, and they're not paying him anything, but he's literally changing the economy there in Cleveland because people are going out and selling jerseys, buying jerseys. Nobody wants to watch the Cleveland Browns unless he plays. And so when started playing, so basically they're putting a value on it's all marketing now. He's a very marketable, good looking guy, got a good arm. He comes from a great family, of course, a Hall of Fame dad. So, that's what it's all about now. It's what they think that these guys can give them. So I think that's why these athletes are getting paid, because the owners stand to make a lot of money if they can bring more eyeballs and more people into the stands to sit there and watch them play.
Yeah, I mean, Bev, that's a marketing play. Obviously, we're looking back in the past. I don't know if athletes from yesteryear had a marketing look at it. I think they were really about social equity and social justice, and I don't know if the money mattered as much to them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, for sure. And I see what you mean about you're not just marketing for the game anymore. Back in the day, it was, can we get people in the stands? And that's where it ended. And now it's, how many jerseys can we sell? Can we sell this podcast as well? Can we sell all this merchandise and bring people into the stands and create a whole reputation for the team based on these players? So it definitely has expanded from just seats in a stadium.
Oh, so you're saying maybe the previous athletes had less to to shill to shill to just, hey, get butts in seats. You're saying there's more of a responsibility to grow.
Yeah, I would say. Yeah, and there's more riding on that individual player maybe in terms of why these teams are forking out that money, keeping them around not just for the wins, but also for that, like you said, that merchandising, that more materialistic end of things.
That's a great point. I don't think Billie Jean King cared about merchandising. I know Muhammad Ali obviously was big on selling certain items. I mean, his brand still sold. I believe it's owned by Everlast. Arthur Ashe, guys like that. Maybe the marketing ploy wasn't as big of a pull, but their social equity pull was huge. Sean, is there just a missing of generally for today's athlete to feel like they have to have more social equity and do more?
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's missing. I think it's changed. It's more social media equity as opposed to social equity, if that makes sense. So now you've got the athletes. Now they're all over socials. They've got social media teams. Whereas back in the day, it was just the work. So Muhammad Ali had to, for you to want to watch this guy and all the brashness that he had, you had to go see him. So it
Yeah.
was, you know,
You mean see, hold on, you mean
yeah,
see him in person.
yeah, to see him in person. Yeah, yeah, you see him in person. Same with Jim Brown. He only played like 8 years, 8 or 9 years. So you had to go see him. Arthur Ashe, the same thing. These guys, you had to go see these guys to see how good they were. And then when they started to stand up for things that they didn't see were right in society, that's when you already knew them from their work on the court or on the field. Now you could pay attention and kind of hear, okay, what are they talking about now?
Yeah, that's an
Whereas
interesting
now,
point.
yeah, whereas now you could say anything on social media and it becomes law almost without any. You don't even have to check your sources.
But an interesting thing you kind of put in the sandwich there is that there was greatness, and
Yeah.
then with that greatness came the ability to speak about a social narrative. Beverly, what do you think? I
Right.
think is greatness a part? Do you have to be great in order to help change the narrative? Because there is something to be spent there. You're going to spend something. You're going to lose followers or fans. Does the greatness piece play into it?
I think it's a bit of a catch-22 at this point because you have that platform because you're an athlete for this team and you're great and people are watching you and you can use that to speak out about things, but if you do, you may well lose that platform. Right? So you have to be very careful about how you're doing things. Can you be vocal about the things that the activism that you want to put forward and the topics that you want to discuss, or does it have to be a little bit more quiet, kind of some backdoor money pushing kind of things? It's definitely a catch-22 in terms of what you can get done in the limelight.
But isn't that
If I
kind of
can add to
gross
that.
though? Yeah, go ahead, Sean.
It
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
No, if I can add to that. So Beverly makes a great point that it's all about brands now. Brands are tied to these athletes. Whereas before Nike didn't exist. Adidas was a smaller company. These brands weren't tied to these athletes. These athletes were just athletes based off of what they can do in the ring, on the field, on the court. And now got these brands for them to go out and speak about social issues. They have to be very careful because now there's a brand associated with it. So there's a lot of money with those brands. They'll cut you off in a minute if they feel like, oh, that's not what we believe in. So it's definitely different. So they have to be a little more quiet, do things behind the scenes, not be as vocal, that type of deal. So,
Yeah, Sean, I love you guys. I agree with the point, but I think it speaks to the greatness of the previous generation because the people I mentioned, Muhammad Ali is one of my heroes. He didn't care about how much money he was going to lose because he didn't agree with the war in Vietnam. He didn't care. They never did anything to me. You know what I mean? I can't get treated well here in America. Why am I going to go fight someone else? They stripped him of his title. I don't know anyone in today's ether that would be willing to lose titles and money based on how they feel about a particular political or social event. Bev?
Colin Kaepernick comes to mind.
Okay. Go ahead.
And
Go ahead. Preach.
what? There's definitely a lot less of it, but again, those consequences are so much higher. And I think it's unfortunate because I look at sports as kind of like a nonpartisan thing for people, right? You consider other avenues of entertainment, certain demographics are going to go towards certain movies or other, avenues of entertainment, but sports are pretty nonpartisan. And so as a team and, as a corporation, you have to be very careful about what your players are talking about. You don't want to disturb the peace. Again, Colin Kaepernick is a modern example of somebody who said, screw all that. I don't care about the games. I don't care about the wins. I don't care about the money. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. And now he's a well-known guy. We all know the story, but there's very few today that are willing to do that, to give all of that up.
Yeah.
I had forgotten about Colin Kaepernick as an example while setting this up, but he's a fantastic modern day example, which brings us to our next point. How much does the money and the influence dilute an athlete's authenticity? Previous athletes were from the block, and they were still very much in society and in their neighborhoods when we were talking about social change. Today's athlete lives in Beverly Hills. He has a house in St. Bart's. He has a private yacht. How difficult is it for him to be a man of the people because of what he sees or what is going wrong, and still be really wealthy, but still somehow connect to his fan base, Sean?
It's very difficult. Like I said, money plays a huge role in that now. I grew up in the inner city. And so back then, grew up in the 80s. And so when they came to the neighborhood, there was a lot of respect. And they came back, they always gave back to the communities, and there was a lot of love there. Now, I don't know when it changed, but it kind of flipped. So now these guys, they come back and they want to help the communities, but the communities, the guys there are jealous. There's a lot of jealousy, a lot of hatred. Why did this guy make it instead of me? There's a catch-22. It's okay, we want to see them come back, but then now they're coming back and rubbing their money all in my face. And so then it becomes unsafe. So for them, here's the same neighborhood that they grew up in and that they lived in, and they know everybody, and they know the hustlers on the block, and they know these guys. But now they're like, oh, this guy's worth $40 million. We could tax him a year. Exactly. So we could tax him, even though we love him, but we need money for the hood, and it sucks. But that's the catch-22. So they have to maneuver differently, unfortunately, nowadays. Whereas back then, these guys made great money, but it wasn't the type of money like we see now. It was a different time. So whereas now these guys are there's so much money being thrown around that, and you can only imagine as a young guy who, young kid, and mom's working 3 jobs, and you're barely eating, and you see this great athlete come by and he's got access and excess, and you're going, man, so then there's a level of jealousy that falls into place there. So it's unfortunate. I know a lot of them probably would, but for their own safety and health, they can't do it. And that's unfortunate.
Bev, it's a lot of dough. And if you've got $300 million, it's a little hard to walk down MLK Boulevard and try to do right by your community. What is your viewpoint on that? I think Sean makes a great point.
Yeah, I think anybody getting that amount of money, something's going to change in you. Like inherently, something is going to change in your values and how you see the world. And I don't think there's much stopping that, but these guys need to put in work if they want to keep that connection. And eventually, like you had said, Sean, that it gets to a point where people don't want to see it, they don't want to hear it. What do you know about that? It doesn't matter how you grew up. Now you got money, what do you know about it?
Right.
And so I think trying to balance as well the public image of these athletes who are, doing brand deals and have the yachts and going on flights, and there's kind of like that social benefit in terms of showing that to the world on social media, that type of thing. And then you can't really relate to these guys anymore. I feel like at that point you need to do that more quiet backdoor donation type of situation. Showing face isn't going to help your cause at that point, I don't think.
I mean, you can still donate. You can still, it's difficult to be a man of the people when you're not a man of the people. It's like, how are you going to do that? I'm driving a Phantom, right? In which everybody wants to stunt. Mackenzie Bezos is able to donate billions of her wealth because she's a multi-billionaire, and make social change. I look at it like, if you have all of this power and money, there's got to be something more that's being done than just blowing it on strippers and blow for society. I mean, yeah, have fun, but there's got to be a bigger reason behind. I know Steph Curry, I think I told you this, Sean, Steph Curry did malaria nets in Africa, never said anything about it, right? And that was a huge deal because it's a big deal in certain places in Africa, malaria. So why not do more stuff like that, Sean?
here's the thing. I think a lot of athletes are doing it, but it's not something that's very popular. People don't want to, believe it or not, people don't want to hear about that. They want to hear about the flash. So that's where it comes in, the social media aspect of it. They don't want to see you helping people that are less fortunate. They want
Well,
to
we
be,
don't. Well, we don't. We
he's
don't
one
want
of,
to see that.
I'm saying that you and I, us on this panel, we definitely want to see that. But the masses want to see the fancy stuff, the fly stuff. And
Yeah.
so that's why you don't see it. It's not popular. Like the stuff that you want to see, you're not going to see that on your feed unless you're really on your social media feed, unless you're really trying to make an effort to see that. And
Yeah.
then the algorithm will change and you'll see that stuff, but you don't. Let me ask you, how did you find out about Steph Curry doing that? Was that on front page news or front of social
No,
media?
I had to dig
Probably
deep. You're not
not.
wrong. I had to dig really deep to find that story, actually.
Exactly. You know,
Yeah.
we don't talk about enough about LeBron James and building a school back in his neighborhood. And then
Mhm.
also, I didn't know
Jalen Rose.
he
Jalen
provided.
Rose.
Yeah, Jalen Rose did a school as well. He also LeBron James also provided homes for those, basically rent free. That if they couldn't afford rent to get their kids to school, he provided that. But we don't hear a lot about that. We don't see it. So that's the reason social media doesn't want to. So you have to do it behind the scenes, and then you got to search for it to get it out there because nobody else is going to put it out there because they want to see the fly stuff.
Bev, you're on Instagram almost as much as I am.
What?
Almost.
Just almost, because my fingers hurt sometimes. Is Sean making a point? Are people much more likely to not pay attention to the positive output stories?
I think in general, yes. It's definitely the rage baity type stuff or the very flashy stuff that is getting people's attention. But this brings us back to kind of bounce off what you've been saying, Sean. It brings us to another catch-22, which is if you're doing all of these things in a kind of a hush-hush manner, that's great, but then you're not getting that additional attention to the cause. But once you bring attention to the cause, it no longer seems genuine.
Whoa.
Right? It no longer seems like an authentic
Beverly,
care.
back up and elaborate on that point, because you might have hit a bar right there. Go again. You're saying go again. I want to
Absolutely
make sure I'm
did
here.
hit a bar.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, people are going to assume if Steph Curry had been all over social media talking about the cause and what he's doing and with these malaria nets and everything, it's kind of, are you doing this for clout? What is the reason that you're doing this? Do you actually care about the cause? And so people are going to start to question it. People would much rather hear down the road, years down the road, hey, did you hear that this athlete actually did all of this stuff for all of these people and never said a word? Maybe it's popping up in the obituary. People love that.
Yo.
But
Right.
again, it's a catch-22. Do you bring the attention to it and potentially get that, additional money? You can reach out to your fans and say, help support. But you have the potential for those people to say, he's just doing this for clout.
And see, that speaks to my point about the jealousy aspect. So it speaks to clout. They're jealous. They got this access and they have all this money. So they can't go out and say, hey, look what I did. And they can't promote these things. And now you're throwing your money in my face. So they have to do it quietly. So that great point. They made an awesome point with that. So
I didn't even think about that. I don't know if my ignorance about it is a good or a bad thing, but I didn't think about the optics of what that looks like. Because I'm just thinking about good is good. You're doing it. I don't care if you're doing it on camera or off camera. Just do it, because it's still better than someone not doing it at all. That's, oh my goodness. If you look at it from that perspective, maybe there is more going on under the surface that we're just not seeing. Sean?
I would totally agree. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of these athletes are doing. They're not saying it because, like I said, it's just the optics of it. They want to put it out there. But to Bev's point, are they bragging about it? What are we doing? This is a good cause. Just do it just to be doing it. Don't put it on social media and blast it and be a show off. But that's
Yeah.
not what they're doing. They're just trying to bring attention to the cause. So it's a catch-22. So how do you do that? I believe most athletes just do it in the shadows, and then they have to, hopefully someone else like you and I and Bev could come on and say, hey, did you hear about this? Because I never knew about Steph Curry and the malaria nets, but you brought it to my attention. So maybe we have to be like their go-to as far as going to the social media and bringing it to light so people can see it.
Can I bounce off of that as well?
Hit it.
I feel like that brings us back to the conversation that we had before about how these athletes can act in terms of what is the team going to allow. So if it's public knowledge that a player is putting money or advocating for a certain cause, if that becomes public knowledge, they're maybe risking their career. The team maybe isn't going to want the general public to know about what that player cares about because we're trying to be nonpartisan.
It all ties
Yeah.
together. You're absolutely right, Beth.
Jesus.
It all
Right,
ties
Beth.
together. So it's not, like I said, not like back in the day where, the Muhammad Ali's, the Bill Russells, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbars, those guys, they went out and did it. This is what they believed in, so they can do that because it wasn't a whole lot tied to as far as the outside of their salary. There's no
Yeah.
marketing, there's no brands, so it's just their salary. The teams really didn't have much say so outside of their free time. It wasn't like they were paying them millions and millions of dollars. I mean, I think the salaries back then, if you made $1 million, you were winning. And $1 million is league minimum right now.
I love when you tee me up for my last topic, Sean. You do that. You do that sometimes. You don't even know it. You just tee me right up like a T-ball.
I'm kind of
Hercules.
getting good at it.
When we talk about what is an athlete worth, sometimes we don't even consider the fact that should athletes be even making this much money? No one really says that about CEOs or politicians, public officials who make tons of money. But we look at athletes like, yo, you shouldn't be making that much money. I pulled some numbers for you guys. Don't freak out. All right. The average NBA athlete makes 171 times a high school teacher's salary. So fine, that's just a number. We're looking at the NBA athlete minimum, the mean rather, is 11.9 million US, and a high school teacher salary, I would assume a good one, is about 69,000. So there's a huge discrepancy there. So my brain goes, is the athlete worth 171 times more to society than a teacher? Bev, I'm gonna let you lead on this since you're slaying right now.
They're worth to society, maybe not, but again, you're paying this athlete to kind of full-time represent your team. So you couldn't pay me enough to live in the limelight and have everything that I do and say scrutinized to the extent that some of these athletes are dealing with. So is it necessarily worth it? Are these millions of dollars necessarily the right number? I can't say that. But again, you couldn't pay me enough to live in the limelight like that, to be constantly scrutinized. And as a team, I can imagine saying, this is kind of like hush money, like shut your mouth and do your job.
You put it with, talking about athletes, it's the same thing with CEOs. Should this CEO get $10 million a year? I mean, the teacher taught the CEO, right?
Ooh.
So shouldn't the teacher get a lot of money? Seriously, the teachers teach these CEOs, presidents, dictators of countries. Teachers have taught them how to do things. So why aren't they getting the kind of money? But the answer is, and so they're not necessarily worth that type of money, but they become worth it because I go back to my first point, they're getting butts in the seats. They're representing this organization. So people, and sport is, like Bev said, it's nonpartisan. Everybody, doesn't matter if you're a Republican, Democrat, independent, whatever, you can go to a sporting event and you come together. It's a great meeting point to where you guys can enjoy the game, and people will pay for that. They pay top dollar for that. They pay for the jersey sales, the concessions. And so are they worth it? As far as the organization's concerned, they are worth it because they're making me more money.
Yeah,
that's what it's about at the end of the day.
It's a hypothetical question that one I could argue for or against with great passion. What is a person worth? They're worth whatever someone's willing to pay them. And the flip side of that would be, how much are you willing to pay versus what your output is and your worth to society? NBA players do bring a lot of smiles, a lot of happiness, a lot of joy. I know my hero, Steph Curry, gives me a lot of joy. I think he's worth every penny. I think he's probably the most underpaid player in the entire NBA. But when we look at economics, do I think they're worth 171 times a teacher's salary? Realistically, no. But that's their output of what they're worth to that team. And to Bev's brilliant point, it's almost hush money. I think Dennis Rodman's favorite quote of mine from Last Dance is, we play for free, but they pay us for the bullshit. It's one of my favorite lines, right? Because you love the game and you play it for free, but they pay you all of this extra money to deal with whatever comes with it. Bev, jump in.
Yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes the point that I made, yeah. And in terms of a player's worth, it's very subjective. Who's determining it? Because the bank probably thinks that guy's worth a lot, right?
Right.
The team thinks he's worth a lot. The average person who maybe doesn't pay attention to sports at all doesn't think he's worth much, and the guy's kid loves him no matter what cut of money he makes. So somebody's worth is so subjective. Again, I don't necessarily think somebody can be worth that amount of money. Those tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars is crazy to me. But again, it's my objective opinion, and that doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, if we go back to one, we look at what Muhammad Ali was worth. Wasn't much. Matter of fact, he didn't make much money at the end because he had sycophants, however you say that word. He had a lot of those people around him at the end who really bled him dry of cash. But his value to society and the world pre-internet, just off headlines and what he meant to people as an athlete, they just outperformed any metric of what value is. So his value wasn't really tied to money, Sean.
I agree. I mean, it really wasn't. It was just he was of the people, and like I said, different times. It was different times back then. I was looking up Arthur Ashe before we got on, and Arthur Ashe was another one. I mean, he didn't play a very long time, but his career earnings was $1.5 million over
Are
his
you serious?
career. Yeah. But he did so much in terms of as far as AIDS research, because he got from a transfusion, he got HIV. He did so much with apartheid, working with trying to get that abolished and all that stuff. So just the activism that he provided in the short time that he was here. He died a relatively young man, and we still talk about him. But he's way more valuable based off of what he did for the society. But as far as monetarily, they weren't paying that much back then. Let's say he was a young tennis player in today's game. I don't know if he would say as much. He may, but he may lose a lot of money. Lose a lot of money. Yeah, because to Bev's point, man, she was cooking with that. It's hush money. I'll pay you this, but you can't tell me, you can't tell the people how you feel about certain things. You got to be quiet.
Bev, can an athlete turn activist maybe towards the end of the career when they've collected all the dough and maybe they can start being more vocal? Could that possibly be the move or the look?
100%. I would say that that's the way to do it. If you're going to go out with a bang, right? Shake it up. Make some people mad. What do you have to lose at this point?
Because you already have the dough. I think the biggest takeaway for me is, in looking at all these things, if you were stripped of your contract tomorrow, what would they really remember about you? If the money's all gone, you know what I mean? You don't have the Phantom, you don't have the PJ, you don't have the yacht anymore. What are people going to remember that you gave to society? And I think that's a valid point, Sean. If you want to say final words about that.
Yeah. It's you really wouldn't remember a lot of these athletes because they're not performing on their stage because you don't know. Like I said, we talked about it earlier. You just don't. They may be doing a lot of things behind the scenes, but you don't know. So if they bring it to the forefront, then we'll know about it. Like, man, I didn't even know he was doing that. I wish I would have known. But do you really? Because if you would have known, maybe you're like, what? He's bragging about it. I don't like people who brag about something that they're supposed to be doing for the masses. You know what I mean? It's really a catch-22. Yeah, but you really don't. You're not going to think about it. And there's so many players. There's a player I wanted to mention, Chris Jackson.
I played against him in an open gym once. Yeah.
Yeah, Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, and for his
baller.
Beliefs, he was Steph Curry before Steph Curry.
100%.
And so he was that great, but because of his beliefs and because of how he felt America was treating people of color, he took a stand, lost millions of dollars. He was one of the best guards in the league and lost millions and millions of dollars. And we don't, if I didn't bring his name up, we don't talk about the guy, how good he is and how such of a great human being and like the stuff that he does behind the scenes, because we don't care, unfortunately.
Such a great point. Bev, do you have some final words for us on this?
Yeah, I think just to piggyback off of that, how much can an athlete really accomplish when they lose that platform? So if they did lose all of the money and the fans and the team, what can they even do, really?
Damn. So finite. Oh, my God. Guys.
Absolutely right. It's perfect.
I appreciate you tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Make sure you tell your enemies. Haters love to hate about things we say, especially me on social media. most of the time. We're coming up on episode 10. I can't believe I've been doing this for 10 weeks. I appreciate everyone who's been here. For Sean Watkins, for Beverly, I appreciate you, and we will see you next week.